Hello, everybody. Welcome back to FREQS podcast episode 16. And today I have a special guest, Shakespeare of Future Sound Systems over in Bristol. Hey, Finn.
Hello. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm just, chilling here at home with my synths and hanging out and doing the same old. And I see you're doing the same over
Yeah,
there.
well, kind of at the studio at the minute, but yeah, it's kind of like avoiding the nice weather outdoors and coming into a windowless room instead. So,
Man, it looks so much fun to play with all that stuff. Wow. So what ARPs are those again? Those two.
so those are the TTSH kits from THC. It's kind of a crazy story. Like I got one of the I think first run like years back, and it just sat like in the corner of it was actually here for ages, because this used to be where like Future Sound Systems was based, and then we kind of moved to a somewhat more like fitting, premises, and this has kind of remained the little studio space. And yeah, just sat here for ages. I would maybe like look at it every now and again and think I should build that thing. And what actually happened is a guy in London was selling like his like built unit really cheaply. It was like half the price of, I think, even just like the like chassis and the board. And it was fully built, and he said, "Oh yeah, it just needs like calibrating." I went and picked it up, and I think there was like no case with it. I'm like, well, I've got a case, so paid the guy, took the thing away, got it cased up, and I think that's the one like over there in the corner of the room. I've been using that for ages, and then the one behind my head I built during lockdown last year, which is kind of like where most of this stuff really came from. It's just been a year of trying to, I was going to say declutter, and that's not really right, because it's still like here, taking up probably more room, but at least it's useful now. I mean, like the bookless stuff, that was kind of the same story. I just went a bit crazy buying boards and stuff, and
The bit in the middle there, right?
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's like it's not really what I expected it to be. Mm-hmm. And like it does. I thought it would be this really nice, like bubbly, happy sounding synth, and it sounds really like aggressive and vicious most of the time, like what I kind of like find on it, I guess.
Was that that's one of the new kits, right? The new vehicle.
Ish. It's like a set of the old electric music store boards that Roman did ages ago. I don't really know like all the connections anymore. So much has gone down in like Bookler land that I'm kind of at a loss now. But it was just, it's just like little bits of stuff. There's the like Northern Light modular ornament and crime thing in there as well. And I'm going to mispronounce his name, but the Dobosh touch sensing note memory thing, the little like assignable keyboard, that's really sweet. But yeah, all of it's DIY, so yeah, it's kind of made it a little bit more affordable, really, just because I mean the prices of that stuff new, it's kind of unobtainium, really. Yeah.
Well, okay, so I like to talk a little bit about how we met, because I think it's really a cool story. Because it was one of the very first parties I went to in London when I moved over there, and it was that Clark and CFX Acid Crew. I was like, what's the name of it? It's CFX, yeah, right?
Yeah.
And I was standing like in front of you during Clark, and I turned around, I'm like, hey, I love your modular, and you're like, oh yeah, I make modules. That's pretty much how it was.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah. Totally obsessed with it all the time, and I just kind of ramble on. And I don't know if Clark actually uses stuff, but I really liked his music anyways.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I think he did for a while. But yeah, I mean that was a great night. That was crazy actually, because was there Luke Vibert as well in the other room for a bit?
oh, it's Luke
And
Vibert, not CFAX. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Got it mixed up.
I think were Doppler effect there as well. I think
Um,
possibly.
might have been. It was.
Because I think I kind of went mainly for Doppler effect, and I managed to get a couple of friends to go because Clark was playing, and I was like, well, yeah, I'll stay for both. So it's but it was, yeah, that was a good night. I mean, it's kind of like long lost memories now with COVID and everything, but
Yeah, and so
yeah,
your Future Sound Systems was 5 years old then, because you just celebrated 10 years last year, right?
yes,
Yeah. So
not quite. So I think I mean the brand itself started like when I was back in school. So that was, I'm gonna get this wrong now. No, I think I did like start using it in about 2005. So I guess like it's turning 16 at the moment, because I remember it was
oh,
like over Easter holidays. I was really bored.
wow. So it's really old
And
now.
yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's been like, I guess the whole Eurorack thing started in like 2008 2009,
Hmm.
because before that I was kind of like doing weird like noisemakers and stuff, and a lot of circuit bending. um but yeah, it's kind of weird to think that it's like been going for so long. And I remember like when I think when I first started like dipping my toes into like making things in the Eurorack format, I think Make Noise and the Harvestman had just started up as well, and there seemed to be like a little like pool of activity in the US. And yeah, it was really. I mean, that was the start of I guess big things, really. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Spectral Devastator, actually, I was just playing with it. It reminds me of the Harvest Man a little bit, because it's got such a crazy
Yeah,
yeah, the way it cuts off right at a certain point, and then it's like such a crazy heavy I don't know, some kind of distortion built into. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that module is weird. It's like. Well, it was whilst I was at university, I was trying to find a way of making a filter, um, and doing it completely from first principles. So, like saying, well, you can have like these resistor and capacitor chains to build up a filter, but to add like voltage control, it's the kind of easiest way of doing it really is to have some degree of voltage controllable resistance. So the main reason that it's so distorted is it uses a pair of JFETs, kind of working as voltage controlled resistors, but it's a very clunky design. And I mean, I looking at it now, it's kind of funny to to look at what I was doing and just think like I'd approach that so differently now. But I still remember like at the time, like I powered it up and it just made this absolutely raucous noise. And I was like, I've got to put this out. This is great. So yeah, it's a kind of funny one, that thing. 'Cause like, I think it gave us like the reputation of, being really interested in like super noisy modules, and also like I guess like the gristalizer range helps
Yes, the
bolster that as
crystallizer.
well.
Super gritty. Yeah.
Yeah, but we like soft sounds too. We're
Oh,
not, we're not all
I don't
like
know anything of your modules being soft, but is it the Brunswick?
yeah.
Brunswick is.
I mean, I don't know. It was funny. Matthew Shaw.
Yeah,
Um,
maths, right?
yeah. Well, oh no, it's
Oh, the guy that
that's
designed the cover of the Findings
possibly,
page.
yeah. So he's part of the whole modular podcast thing with Ben, DivKid.
Okay.
Really lovely guy. But I remember he like did it was quite early on as well. He got a Spectral Devastator and he made this like demo of it doing like ambient stuff. I mean, it was, I think, going into like quite a lot of other stuff. afterwards. But that's really lovely. I'm pretty sure it's still like online, I think on YouTube or something. But I mean, it's funny. Like we're kind of at a bit of a crossroads at the minute because we're not going to like stop doing Eurorack, but we've dipped our toes into like standalone stuff a little bit, particularly last year with the new pin matrix. And it's interesting because I mean, people want it and people are interested, and it's relatively easy for us to do. And I'm now like, I feel confident in what Jamie and I can do to like bring something to the standalone market that is completely unique and, take some things from our kind of like Eurorack line and redevelop them into something that is, a playable instrument. So yeah, there's a lot of things kind of bouncing around in my head at the minute, which I need to spend some time in front of CAD and get it all down. But yeah.
How many rows is the pin matrix, is it? And it uses the small pins, right?
Yeah. So the standalone one is 8x8, and then the Eurorack one is 9x9. And I mean those numbers really are only chosen because of like physical constraints of the socket. So like with the Eurorack one, it was 9 because that's like, the most sockets I could fit in a line down the like vertical axis of the panel. And then when Jamie, because really the standalone one is Jamie's baby, really. He found like a nice 1/4-inch jack socket to use, and he was like, okay, well, how many of these can I get around like, the 4 sides of a square? So yeah, and we thought, 8's a nice number. It's 4 pairs of stereo, kind of makes sense. So yeah,
cool.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, like the little intricate things with I mean, I don't use them yet, but that's like,
sure.
You have to set aside the time and the energy to work with those really small things because it's more like, that's crazy stuff. Patching is just like, well, do whatever. I want to also say you worked with an artist. I saw you play at the Barbican. That was amazing. What was his
that
name?
with Charlemagne Palestine?
Yes, yeah. The guy with all the dolls. That was an amazing performance. You were working a giant Moog system and doing this crazy drone.
Charlemagne's an amazing guy. It's funny. Something came up on Twitter recently because I think some like old, is it PBS out in the States, the public broadcasting? Yeah. I think it's some like PBS interview with him, and like he's totally in, the zone. Wow. And like that, it's totally him. Like people were, asking, "Oh, is this all an act?" And it's like, it's not at all. Like he's the kind of guy that will say something, and at first you just go, I don't know what you mean. How can that work? And then you go along and you do it, and then when it happens, it's amazing. It's just whatever that might be. I mean, so that was part of my work with the Moog Sound Lab UK, which is still it still exists. It's just obviously with what's happened in the last year, hasn't really been able to go out or have people come in or whatever, sadly, but it's still around. And it's headed up by a guy called Paul Smith. Paul knows a huge network of artists, Charlemagne being one of them. And I think Charlemagne was the second artist we had in. So when Paul put those shows on at the Barbican, he said, well, let's get Charlemagne to do a performance. And yeah, I mean, it was just an amazing experience working with him, really, because he's so into like, obviously he's working with these like real huge drones. So it's, and it's not soft either. It's, we had, and I think that might've been in that performance. He asked for every single like oscillator in the room, on a sawtooth, dry, going out to, the PA.
Yeah, it was wild. I remember walking in to the Barbican space, and it was in the whole in the whole space, even before you got to the auditorium where you guys were. And I was just like, whoa, what's going on? What is
Yeah,
the sound?
yeah.
But
And
I love,
it's an
yeah,
sorry, you go.
all the little dollies, you know, I love dollies.
Yeah.
And he had so many of them. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
I mean, because he had those in the studio as well, and like they are his audience. Like it's interesting. But
Even when he has a real audience, he brings the dollies.
yeah, oh yeah, they got to be there. But
Funny.
no, I mean he's great, and it's interesting because in having like that massive wall of sound, it's the whole kind of drone thing. You start listening to like the micro elements of what that sound is doing, and you start hearing things that they are there, but they're not. Well, with Charlemagne, it is intentional, but from just putting a bunch of oscillators together, you wouldn't necessarily think that you start getting all of these things coming out of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, his. I know we did a few more performances after that. As part of the state, I think it was Station to Station the month after, and I hadn't heard him really. I think I'd heard him sing before that, but I hadn't heard him really, go for it. And he just, started really singing in the middle of one performance, and I was just absolutely shocked because his voice is incredible, and what he was doing with it, I don't know of any other Western singer who can do that as well as he can, particularly just on the spot without any rehearsal.
What was he doing? Some kind of Eastern type of
Yeah,
throat singing or something?
yeah, like really kind of like melismatic stuff, but really spot on. I mean, not because you hear so many singers do it, and it's really pitchy, and it's not quite there, and he was just nailing it. And I don't know if it's something he practices or yeah, it was really, really amazing.
Yes,
Um,
but when did you start singing? Because I remember the first performance when I had you come over to my university at the Boiler House, and
yeah,
it was all just your synths, and we kind of had a jam, and that was cool too. But you weren't singing then, so I think you
no,
started in like 2016, right?
yeah, it's kind of funny because I had like um, I did like bits of kind of performance before that. Again, kind of when I was like back at school, where it was me and a laptop and like an electric guitar as well. I mean, I can't really play at all, but for me that was kind of like a way of saying, well, especially like growing up where I did, I could kind of just about get a few shows booked because it wasn't super alien.
Mm,
Like there's a guitar there, it's got to be, this will fit in down like the kind of like indie bar, I guess,
that's a good
in
idea.
town.
Make it
Um,
acceptable. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so I was kind of singing then, but it wasn't really. It was almost like a bit of a means to an end. And then I kind of dropped all that for a long time, and then when you asked me to play at the CV Freaks thing in London, I kind of thought, well, if I'm going to perform with a modular again, I kind of want to do something quite different. And again, I mean, that performance was, I think, completely off the cuff. It was just like a little 6U rig and a little Volca Beats drum machine thing,
That was
and a
heavy.
little, yeah, the little SQ1, and just trying things out kind of really on the spot. And then, I mean, really, I've got you to thank in a lot of ways, because I think without doing that, I wouldn't now be doing what I'm doing, really,
Musically.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.
Because you got on
um,
Auditions Migo. That's an amazing label, right?
yeah, I mean, yeah. So Peter, who runs Mago, like, um, he's a great guy. Like, he's fantastic, and he knows Mega's a really funny one because a lot of people think, it's an experimental electronic label. It's a lot of
or Mega. It's addition.
I've always said Mego, but I don't really know. I don't know if it's Mego. I don't know if it's Mego. I can't even remember what Peter calls it.
I saw Peter play at Cafe Otto when I was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another, yeah.
His live stuff is amazing as well.
Yeah. The other guy that opened up for him was playing the Phenol. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name at the moment, but it was really, really cool. I liked.
Yeah.
And then I guess I tried to come see you at Cafe Otto as well, but I think it was too full, so I couldn't go in.
Yeah, was that the Tony Allen show with the Sound Lab again?
Yeah, it was the Sound Lab. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Peter's an amazing guy, and like everything that he puts out, it's just stuff that he likes, and he finds interesting or compelling. And I mean, we were lucky enough really for him to be interested in what we did with Future Sound Systems. And then I think I just put some like whingy Facebook post up because I wanted to play some more shows, and I was like, well, does anyone know how to do this? I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and Peter just said, send me your stuff. Like, what are you doing? And
yeah, it was so cool. You captured this kind of really industrial kind of punk kind of sound, but made it new, like from the 80s, but you made it totally new.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of like what I was trying to do, because it turns out that like we're both like massive fans of the early Human League stuff, and like TG, Cabaret Voltaire, all of that, a lot of the early Mute stuff, Virgin Records around that time as well. And I mean that's kind of what he hears in what I'm doing, which I'm really grateful for and really thankful to have, because it's interesting trying to tell people about that. They kind of say like, well, isn't this really new, like using vocals and like modular synths at the same time? It's like, well, it's not really, because like the Human League were doing it in the late 70s, TG were doing it in the late 70s.
What's
trying
TG?
to think of other people. No, sorry, Throbbing Gristle.
Oh, okay, Throbbing Gristle. Your buddies with Chris Carter, right?
Yeah. Chris is, yeah. Chris is great.
What was his input on that?
In the Gristalizer?
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a mad one. Again, this kind of came through working with Paul and the Sound Lab. So Paul used to manage Chris and Cozy, and the like reunited TG when they toured again and kind of got back together. And I think I saw something on Facebook the one day where there was a company in the States that had brought back the like original Gristalizer circuit in Eurorack. And it had all kind of like just faded away. No one really knew what was going on. You couldn't get any stock of it anywhere. And I just said I think a couple of guys were really keen to get one. And I said, well, hang on, I might have a way of getting in touch with Chris. Let's see what happens. Pardon me. And I asked Paul about it. He put me in touch with Chris. Met up with Chris. He kind of said, well, really, we should talk to Roy Gwynn. So Roy originally designed the circuit back in the 70s when he was a teenager. And I think he just sent it into like a practical electronics magazine or something like that. And they published it. So you could, buy his little design, buy a PCB and make your own. I think it was just called Guitar Effects Pedal. That's all it was. There was no indication of what it actually did.
Wow.
But yeah, and that's how Chris got into it, and that's kind of how the Gristalizer came about, was him taking that circuit, bringing some things out to the front panel that were, kind of hidden away on little trimmers and stuff like that. And, you know, a lot of those early recordings, like kind of the first album and the bits before that you can find, there's a lot of that, you know, effect on it. And yeah, got in touch with Roy, and in all honesty, at first I thought he was a little bit skeptical, and then a couple of days later he came back with like completely revised schematics of the filter and the VCA, and it kind of just slowly churned away from there. I mean, I made loads of mistakes. It was a really good learning process for me, because it was kind of actually dealing well, also being shown the way by a really experienced like electronics engineer, because Roy's done loads of work over the last few decades. I mean, he used to run a company called Celador, who kind of back in, I think it's the late 70s, early 80s again, did loads of like little, you know, kits and things like that. I need to really talk to him about it, because there's a massive archive there that I think is, I don't know if it's lost, I don't know if it still exists. I mean, knowing Roy, I think he's probably still got hold of all the designs and things like that.
Where's Roy from again? I don't recognize the name of Roy.
So Roy lives, I think, in Cambridge. He's British. He used to work. It's really weird. There's this whole like circle of
underground
things happening in like his life. So he used to work at Macari's, a shop called Macari's in London.
Oh yeah,
I think it was on Charing Cross Road,
Denmark Street.
Yeah, that kind of area. It might well still be there. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if Crossrails demolished it. But so Chris bought a load of stuff there whilst Roy was working there, and I think so did Daniel Miller. Oh, wow. So it's kind of bizarre that it's like, okay, all the people that like we've had these, you know, associations with have all possibly met, and the thought that like Roy had possibly demoed stuff to Chris and Daniel in Macari's, with Chris actually using Roy's designs but not knowing who they were, because they only like officially met, I think, certainly like in the 2000s. I'm not sure whether the Future Sound Systems Grisalizer brought them together or whether the EAR one did. But yeah, it's weird to think that like these people have actually possibly met in the past and have had this link in totally in what they were doing, but never actually never knew at the time. And like I'm not even sure if Chris knows the Macari's thing. I think he does, but I'm not entirely sure. It's just it's mad. It's mad that whole like, I think that scene, I call it scene. I mean, the whole like late 70s thing, particularly in London, was a lot more, you know, tightly knit than
connected,
things possibly are today. I don't know, but
I loved the community. Just, I don't know, it was so many coming out to do things. Then there's also that synthesizers.com, those guys. Where are they? And
so the synthesizers.com, they're over in the States, right?
I must be thinking the wrong one. I don't want to mix up things or make things confusing.
No.
I'm pretty sure I invited them to my events because they were somewhere in the UK, but they were never at their booth.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I don't know who that might be.
Anyways, that doesn't matter. But love your sound, love the designs. I got my Spectral Devastator hooked up here. Are you going to show us a few sounds? You have things hooked up?
I can maybe try. I mean, I've got nothing patched up at the minute.
I see.
I was just trying some stuff with the booklet earlier, and it's really nerdy. I wanted to see like how the 281 control inputs work and whether they're So the 281's like an envelope generator, but you've got voltage control over the tap and decay. And I wanted to see if you could do like rough 1 volt per octave tracking, and it's not. I'm pretty sure it's linear, but because it's linear, it lets you do funny things with the shape quite easily, which is nice. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe I might be able to rig some stuff up, maybe, and we can like edit back in or something. I don't know.
No, no editing.
Okay.
This is too much work. I got mine hooked up, the Spectral Devastator with your this one is called the convulsion generator. So I got
the
convulsion generator and the Spectral Devastator running through my Raven and Eloquencer. Very simple.
There you go.
I like that little bit of grit in there.
Yeah. Funny hearing the like older Spectral Devastator, like, because we've got like a slightly newer one out, mainly because we've just changed like how we manufacture things and all that. And some people have said like it doesn't sound the same, and it's interesting because like the circuit should allow you to get the same sound, but because there's like controls on like the input level and the output level and like exactly what the resonance circuit's doing, it is a little bit different, I think. I keep looking down here, by the way. I've got my like Euro rack rig to this side, and I've like got it right in the corner of my eye. But yeah, it's a funny little thing, isn't it?
Man, wow.
Raucous.
Wild. You have it's just the question I usually ask. It's all analog components, right?
Yeah. We don't do anything digital simply because we don't know how to. So there's loads of things like, I don't know, it's really interesting. I was reading this article last night, actually. I've forgotten the guy's name, but he put it, I think, on the Facebook like synth DIY group, and how to get like baby steps in STM32. So that's like a little microcontroller thing that is used everywhere. Like Emily at Mutable uses it in pretty much everything. I think most people use it in everything, to be honest. And that looks really interesting because we both, Jamie and I, we've sat down and tried to get into it, and it's like whoosh, straight over our heads. We've got no idea. But this was like written, this article seems really good because it is written from a, like you just about know like how to code the very basics, but you've got absolutely no idea what, like, how you get the, program that you've written onto the chip. Because that's the thing, I couldn't even tell you like how like bootloader works or anything like that. It's I don't know.
Yeah, super confusing, the coding. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So everything we've done so far is purely 100% analog. But there's a few things that we really want to do that kind of necessitate there being some digital element now. Probably not even in the signal path, more as like, sequencers and control and things like that. But a good friend of ours as well, Luke Knott, who is based in London, we're kind of like trying to push him into doing a few things for us as well. So I think he's busy. He just picked up one of those Electrosmith Daisy things. I don't know if you've seen that.
Don't know.
It looks really neat. It's like a box, or I think they do a Eurorack module as well. That's got a bunch of basic like user interface things, and then it's all completely configurable through programming as to what you actually do with it. So I presume there's like a library of stuff that you can just load on it and go from there. It's a bit like all the Rebel technology stuff, the OWL and all that.
Oh yeah, reloadable or
yeah.
I thought that was a good idea. Can change. I guess like Oz kind of stuff like that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really confusing.
Yeah. I mean, I admire those guys because I don't know where to start. You know, for me, like analog electronics is, at least at the level that we're doing it, it's easy-ish. You know, you kind of you take these building blocks, you put them together in various ways, and they do, you know, various things. And like it's a very kind of like one-to-one thing. If you change, you know, a resistor value or a capacitor value, you tend to you know what's going to happen. Whereas like with code, it's like, you know, if you change one line, if it's badly written, which of course it would be in our case at the moment, then immediately your entire thing falls apart. So yeah, it's just no idea, you know.
Yeah, you could always ask Soulsby for help on that as well.
Oh my god, genius! Yeah. I'm trying not to use the word genius as much as I used to in the past, but I mean, yeah, that guy, it's insane. I every time I talk to Paul, like I try to tell him like how much I think I look up to like what he does, and how much it just blows my mind as to what he fits into, you know, what he uses. And of course, Paul being Paul, he just, you know, brushes it aside, and it's like no, it's still broken, you know.
Yeah,
Bless him.
yeah. Okay, so
But
let's hear a few sounds from you, and then if you can, and I think I asked you before we started the call, but any new EP coming or anything like that?
so there's another album that's in the works. I mean, I've kind of got the bare bones of it, but I'm hoping I can at least get it finished. Well, I'll certainly get it finished this year. Whether it will come out this year, I'm not sure. But there are a couple of other things in the works. There's some collaborations that are, again, trundling along. I think COVID is kind of like slowing a lot of those things down, because it's, you know, it's a case of getting several people in the same room. It just doesn't, you can't do it at the minute, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Well, I don't know, it's this gray area, because, you know, it could be classed as work. It's certainly not essential work, but it could be classed as work. And I know, like, even like Jamie and I, we've had relatively long conversations about, like, when we do have to be in the office, should we be in the office together? You know, what do we do? And trying to be as safe as possible, really. But it's hard. And I mean, I know, like, the state of, you know, vinyl pressing at the moment, I think is tricky, because I think, was this like at the start of lockdown last year? There was a big fire at one of the like lacquer manufacturing plants.
Oh, I didn't hear
So
about that.
yeah, I think it was like one of two in the world. There's like one in the States and one in Japan. And I think it's the one in Japan that went up in flames. I'm not entirely sure. I might be wrong. But I remember at the time, like, it's Josh Cheon, I think, at Dark Entries. He was really vocal about it online. And I was kind of like following, you know,
About
because
making vinyl more environmentally friendly. That I saw that, I think.
yeah, no, I don't think it was. I don't think it was that. I think it was more just, you know, when this place caught fire, he was really concerned, like, that pretty much he wouldn't be able to put anything out for like a year or something. You know, it was, yeah. I mean, I think he's put stuff out over lockdown, so I don't know. All of that's kind of above my head, really. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, also just the fact that like every artist and band has just been like on lockdown for
Creating
the
a lot
last
of
year.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody's
I don't know. I don't know what that means to like release schedules. I don't know. You know, I mean, I know touring at the moment is just, it's hilarious. I keep seeing like festival lineups. And I'm like, why does this seem just like last year's was? And then I have to remind myself that, like, well, it is last year's lineup, you idiot, because the festival couldn't go ahead. So yeah, it's kind of strange. Like, we just seem to be in like Groundhog Day, and I think that is going to be there is definitely going to be a kind of knock-on effect from that. So I'm kind of hoping, like, because the last album pretty much came out, like, it was, I think in a few days it will have been out a whole year. It was like right at the start of lockdown. I just don't think anyone really took any notice of it because, you know, there were far more important things at hand, and kind of rightly so, really. But it does feel a bit strange to, like, not have really played that much off that album live at all. So I'm kind of hoping, I mean, what I'm working really at the moment on is a new live show, and using like slide projectors hooked up to the modular as well, and strobing those, like, with Stevie and Gate. Yeah. So
love that.
Yeah, I've finally found a way of doing it where it doesn't catch fire. So
What are you using, the LZX or whatever? Which one?
No. So it's just like really old slide projectors.
Cool. Even better.
I might be able to. Let me just give me one moment. I'll just get the guts of one.
Okay. Some cool stuff. Look at that. Oh wow. So then the middle is all the bucla, and the surge is on the right and left. And he said that I'm just telling them on the right, my right, which I guess is, if you look back at it, it'll be your right too, is some Ciet Lombard stuff that you made with surge panels?
Yeah, so I've kind of just been, again, kind of through finishing this off, like, over lockdown, I've really gotten into, like, the surge environment and like how that stuff is put together. I know Dave Burriston, he's based over in Australia, but he's, you know, a British-born artist, I guess. So, like, he's over here a fair amount of time. We got talking about kind of, like, design. He said, well, you know, this old, like, this way of doing the surge stuff is really nice from, like, a user experience point of view, because everything's, like, on a 1-inch grid. So everything feels like, it just feels very nice and organized. And
too organized. Come on, give us a little more chaos.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, because then, like, the like symbols, all the hieroglyphs on the panels and stuff kind of then knock all of that tidiness out of the window. So, you know, sometimes you're kind of a little bit unsure what you're doing. I'm like still wrapping my head around, like, what's the hieroglyph for an audio input, a control input, an output. And kind of like having the colored jacks helps a little bit, but it's still pretty nuts. But I just really like the way that it's put together, and it's really easy to, like, if you have a panel's worth of stuff, it's relatively easy to then, like, just put that all together in CAD, and then get a panel made and you know, stick it all in one case. So that's kind of what I did. This is all the, like, Rolls 5 circuitry, and I wanted to build that for ages, and it is absolutely nuts. But doing it in this format, like, I've modified it a bit, so it's kind of happy to be patched with everything else. There's nothing that's going to go, you know, crazy over voltage. All the current's limited.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the thing. It's kind of now just putting this stuff to use and you know, trying to make songs with it. But it's a nice, like, little ecosystem, and I'm now just, like, finding things that I you know, started building more than, like, 10 years ago and just abandoned. I keep finding things in my mum's garage. It's just, like, bits of stuff that I started making at school, and I'm just, like, taking all that apart now and trying to find what works and what needs fixing, and then just sling it into this format, because it's just so easy to mount the stuff in a box, wire it all up, and then it's kind of done.
What a fantastic idea. That is really great.
Yeah.
So
Thank
cool.
you. I don't know if you want to see it, but I mean, this is like the bare bones of one of these projectors.
Oh yeah.
So, like, you put, like, you have a carousel full of slides here, and it like shifts into this. I don't know how well you can see it. This like mechanism here, and then out through the lens there. But like back in this kind of like barrel almost, there's a light, which typically is just like a filament bulb. And what I've been trying to do is change that over to like an LED array, so I can then strobe it really quickly, and it won't, you know, blow or burn out or whatever. And yeah, it's really funny because again, it's one of those basic things that's kind of like really instilled how important real basic electronics is.
How do you connect it with the modular though?
So it's kind of it's like a string of LEDs that at the end of the string it goes through a MOSFET, and a MOSFET in kind of like synthesis terms is a bit like a voltage controlled switch. So you can send like 5 volts into the gate input, and it then makes a circuit. It completes the circuit between the 2 other terminals. So I mean, it's ideal for something like this where I'm kind of like, well, I've got 5 volts. I want to, you know, send that into this, you know, LED array, and then just turn it on and off. And I mean, I've had so many problems with this, trying to get it working. I tried to do it like really efficiently and all in the projector. That didn't work. That's when I started some fires, and yeah, all hell broke loose. So this time I've now gone to this like really low current but high voltage thing. So it runs off the mains, and it's safe now. It had the potential to be a bit lethal. But yeah, it's all good now, and it all works. It just all needs like testing, and I need to actually make the visuals for the show as well. That's now the main thing. But yeah, I mean, it's so much fun just being able to have like these, you know, flashing images and stuff completely in time.
Yeah, from old slides. Yeah.
And there's no video involved, so there's no like scanning. There's no, you know, you can like plug a VCO into this thing and go from like, you know, slow pulsing all the way up into, you know, when you're at audio rate, you can then change the pulse width and actually have the light fade in and out, which is really, really cool. And I need to like write, what I want to do is I want to use like MIDI to CV, write a load of things from like the Electron Digitact that I use live, and just get all these like crazy like strobing, but then also like fading in and out kind of patterns and things.
Yeah, because you can adjust the time on them as well, right? Yeah. Really good idea.
Yeah, it's going to get pretty crazy pretty quickly, I think.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, fingers crossed fingers crossed someone books me. I mean, I just need some bookings. But
you could always do like a teaser on the web or something like that.
I think I will, because like that's the thing. I mean, this just making a light come on and off, I've put so much time and effort into it. It's been hilarious. It's genuinely like years worth of work on and off.
Good job.
Thanks. It feels so dumb. Like, you know, we can make like voltage controlled oscillators and stuff like that. But then when it comes to, you know, oh yeah, let's make some LEDs turn on and off, it's really hard. It's like, there's so many like limitations there in terms of, you know, again, it's been a real learning curve, because you think like, okay, what's the like luminosity of this bulb? Like, how bright is this bulb? Okay, it's that bright. How many of these LEDs do I need to get somewhere close to that? Like bright enough so I can, you know, go into a venue, turn the lights off, and people can see this thing. And then also, how resilient are the LEDs to like, before I had like a bunch of them running in parallel, and there was just too much current like running through the board. It got really warm, and the actual solder on the LEDs started to melt.
Oh no.
So the whole thing just shorted over.
It's really scary.
one of the fires. So yeah, it's kind of nuts. But like this final design now, I'm like happy enough with it that I'm like, this works perfectly. It's solid. It's safe. You know. But yeah, I just it's getting into some like area of technology that is completely left field to what we do in terms of like modular synthesis. But then it's really valuable in terms of, you know, well, it has made me think more about, you know, these things when I'm actually designing a module or a circuit now, you know. So yeah, it's just
cool.
It's just hilarious. I can't.
Thanks for showing.
That's all right.
Do you want to make some sounds?
I can try. I'm not sure how things are patched up in the minute. Let me have a quick look. This might be easy, or it might be really terrible. But let's have a look. I'm also getting like really terrible static shocks here at the moment. Let me. I can't see you.
Full screen show active speaker video.
If I bring this a bit closer to you. Oh,
okay, got you full screen now.
Might be a little bit better.
All right.
But yeah, like it's been really nice just using this side of the room and kind of away from the computer as well to really get into like
Yes, I love the little trills.
So that's this thing. I wonder if I can actually, maybe I can bring you over. This thing.
Oh yeah.
That's the TSNM. So this, again, my pronunciation, Dobosh, I think is the brand. There's a version for Eurorack that's really nice and really like, put you back there. It's really fully featured. But yeah, again, it's kind of one of those things that I got and it's still sat in the box waiting to be built. And I think he's now done like a second revision. So the one that I've got now is old. It's just, you know, it's the same old stuff. Let me patch something up quickly for you.
It's got a beautiful sound, really.
Yeah, it is really lovely. I mean,
super vintage.
Yeah, it kind of, you get all of these like interesting, I guess, yeah, tones from it, for want of a better word, because
is there a reverb tank built in there as well?
Yeah, it's got a really, I mean, people complain about the reverb being like really dull and really like a bit noisy. I haven't found that with this. I mean, it's the stock like design that's in there, and it is from an electronic point of view. It's driven a bit strangely, I guess. Like,
Ah. There we go.
And that's the thing. It's so easy on this to do like all the booklet cliches, like all of that, you know. But then it's also like really nice. So kind of like why wouldn't you? But
That's awesome.
let's see if I can get the. just repatch this a little bit so I can get the modulation oscillator doing something too. Let's keep that a little bit of. Let me see if I can get that matched up with the sequencer. So yeah, it's super easy to just get things moving. Like this is pretty much all the 208 as well at the moment. And I think sound-wise, like I actually prefer, so down on this bottom side, again, if I try and move you over. So this is the 259, the 291, so I should say what these are as well. The 259 is like the complex oscillator that has spawned like every, dual complex VCO in Eurorack. The 291 is, again, seemingly like there's a really split opinion on this online. I really love it. It's a dual bandpass filter. It's got loads of character. You can take it like really smooth into like really angry territory. I'll get that patched up in a minute actually. And then this is the 281, which is just this amazing like attack decay generator that you can do LFOs with it. You can do rhythmic subdivisions with it. It's kind of like where maths came from and all of that, and all the various spawns of maths. The 292, which is like this is the touch sensing note memory, and then up here I've got the 1 beat prime thing, and then this. So I had this source of uncertainty panel from 265. The 265 is what came before like the 266, which is what everyone thinks, of when they hear source of uncertainty. And I adapted, there's a non-linear circuits module which is like based kind of on the functionality of the 265, so I kind of reworked that with permission into this panel. Because I have a panel with no board, and I genuinely don't know when that happened. Like when I bought it, I have no recollection of buying it. It's just one of those purchases that just like came out of nowhere. I'll take you back over here. But yeah, and just adjust that slightly. But yeah, I mean it's like an interesting bunch of stuff, and like if I do this is going to upset the balance. I'll just give you a little like play around with the 291 as well. I've got to think of a way that I can make this so it's not going to be bleedingly loud. Go through the 292 first. Do that. There's also the thing, like, with the booklet stuff, it's all on like banana and mini jack. Well, tiny jacks, but I've just built everything with mini jacks, which again is possibly heresy. But for me, that's what everything else here is built with, so I may as well try and get some degree of like interfacing working. Does what a filter should do and brings out this noise. Yeah.
It's almost like it's going through the phone or something. You always hear that with buka, like sound.
Yeah. It can get really like aggressive. You can bring like the Q right up and make it really super narrow. If I cascade the two of them. So nice, this thing. It's so easy to just.
It's wonderful.
Let me patch that into there as well,
Yeah.
Proper like singing. Let's get some patch cables. These little like trolleys, by the way, at IKEA. They're amazing. I don't know if you can actually see them in shot at all, but
good for cables.
Yeah, they're so good, and they're on little caster wheels. You can like, just take them wherever. Let me get the programming tools into this as well. That thing's amazing. It's also funny just like trying to interface all this stuff too. It's like half the time it just doesn't really want to play ball.
Yeah, it's so much. great.
Losing the plot.
Man, that's a great sequencer on there. So the bottom one that you just plugged in, that's a sequencer for the filter?
Yeah, so all that's doing at the moment, funny enough, is just switching the VCA on and off. So all the filter modulation is coming from the 265, the kind of sloped randomness. But I can plug that in. So I can plug that into the sequencer. I'm just going to repatch that as well, try and clean up that. Yeah, something weird going on with that. Wait, it's me, isn't it? Yeah. It's because I've skipped half the steps. That's what happens when you skip the steps. The steps get skipped. Anyway, so yeah, that's... Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
again, all of that, like, just that little bit of that sloping that you get off the laterals in that dual bandpass. Like, you can send it these, like, step things and almost get, like, passive elements out, because, you know, when you go from that real high cut off all the way down, it's kind of a bit like kick drum-esque.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Super cool.
It's endless fun. Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. That was awesome. That was awesome. That's great. So cool. Straight from the 70s. Almost.
I mean, it really is. It really is.
Oh, I can hear a little something on your voice there too. That sounds cool.
Oh, was that?
Must have
might just be the room.
Oh.
It's, I've like yeah, I've gone to town a little bit on the I kind of do this if I get like video calls in here. I set up a mic and then route it through some compression and stuff. But the last chat I had, no one could hear me for ages because I'd forgotten that I do all the routing through Ableton, and I'd completely forgotten that there's like a stock reverb and delay on the sends. So all they were getting for like the first 10 minutes of the call was me through this massive reverb. The voice of God, you know, coming down.
Yeah, and, I heard a little bit of that.
Yeah, I finally realized after a while, turn the reverb off and it was fine. But
well, thank you so much for showing us your synth and for doing that little jam for us. It sounded amazing.
No worries.
And
No worries.
thanks for coming to talk to me, and you know, I can't wait to see you again in the real world, man.
Yeah, I mean maybe we can make it over to the States. Who knows? Like,
yeah, if there's anything worthwhile going on,
yeah,
make something happen.
Yeah.
After everybody's got the the okay from the world saying, okay, we're free again to travel. So
yeah, it's strange times. Strange
sad.
times.
It's really sad. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, it was really, really cool to have you, and thank you for sharing with everybody. And
Thank you for bringing me on, Eden. It's been great. I mean, and just to catch up with you again, I didn't realize actually how long it had been. So
yeah, yeah, 2 years,
yeah,
2 years since
yeah.
Superbirth. So
Time is a weird thing at the minute.
well, say hi to Jamie for me, and
Do